Hey folks, tonight we are stepping back into the cold, unlit corridors of history to meet a very particular kind of unfortunate soul, the medieval assassin. Not the cool, cloaked figure leaping across rooftops in a video game. Nope, the real one's starving, desperate, usually damp, and just one botched job away from ending up in pieces somewhere outside a city wall. So, before we dive in, hit like and subscribe, only if this kind of storytelling keeps you coming back. And if you're watching this from somewhere weird at 3 a.m., drop your location and local time in the comments. It's always fun to see who else can't sleep. Now, lower the lights, get comfortable or uncomfortable, because this story doesn't have a warm ending, and let's begin. Let's get this straight. Nobody in medieval Europe sat up in bed one morning and said, "You know what I'd love? To spend my life dodging arrows, living in shadows, and maybe getting stabbed in a pigsty for 15 copper coins." Becoming an assassin wasn't some noble quest. It was the occupational equivalent of pulling the short straw in a burning tavern. The real assassins weren't elite monks trained in secret temples. They were washed-up soldiers, ex-thieves with no retirement plan, or peasants with steady hands and nothing left to lose. If you were rich, you didn't become an assassin, you hired one. If you were poor, clever, quiet, and already on the run, congratulations, you were recruit material. You didn't get flashy contracts, you got whispered names. And those names weren't friendly village bakers. They were corrupt dukes, greedy bishops, occasionally someone who had 6 guards, a moat, and a personal food taste named Gerald. The job paid, just enough to tempt you. But not enough to survive on, or retire, or buy decent shoes. Forget the idea of rigorous assassin training. You didn't learn from a wise master with a falcon on his arm. You learned by not dying. There were no schools, no textbooks, no slow-motion sword choreography. Most assassins learned on the job by messing up, improvising, and, if they were lucky, surviving long enough to not make the same mistake twice. You might have picked up some tricks from a mercenary. Maybe someone showed you how to hold a knife without cutting your own thigh. But mostly, you winged it. Poison. Trial and error. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes your target just got a tummy ache and increased security. Sometimes you drank the wrong cup. Oops. Why take the job at all? One word, money. Another word, lies. See, the promise of coin was the bait. The reality? You got half up front maybe, and a knife in the back after. Clients didn't want loose ends. And you, with your memory and knowledge of secret passageways, were a very frayed end indeed. Sometimes you didn't even get real jobs. Just decoy assignments set up to lure you into a trap, political bait. "Kill this lord," they'd say. Except the lord was waiting, with guards, and dogs, and possibly a jester with a crossbow. Let's talk tools. No, you didn't have a mechanical wrist blade or cloaks that turned you invisible. You had a dagger, maybe 2. If you were fancy, a garrote. If you were desperate, a sharp spoon. Poison was homemade. Bowstrings snapped. Arrows bent. Were no weapon upgrades. No quartermaster. Just you. A knife that may or may not be rusting, and a prayer that your target didn't own a helmet. Targets? They weren't easy. You weren't sent after peasants. You were after high-value nobility. The kind with walls, gates, and bodyguards who weren't paid enough to be merciful. You'd spend weeks just getting close. Pretending to be a stable boy. hiding in barrels, learning which floorboard creaked and which guard had a limp and stopped for a breather on stair 12. You got one shot. No do-overs. No, wait, my knife slipped. Can I try again? Just one moment. One breath. And if you blew it? Well, they'd invent a new execution method just for you. Disguises? Laughable. You didn't have sleek leather armor. You had burlap robes, guard uniforms that didn't quite fit, and a twitchy expression from too many nights spent awake. You looked suspicious because you were suspicious, limping through the courtyard muttering, "I'm definitely just a chimney sweep," while adjusting the dagger in your waistband. No masks, no wigs. If you needed to look older, you rubbed dirt on your face and hoped nobody asked questions. You had no team, no guilt, no mentor to pass the torch. You were alone. You didn't make friends. Friends talk. You didn't have lovers. Lovers notice bloodstains. You didn't settle. Not in a village, not in a town. Because you couldn't afford anyone recognizing your face, your gait, your knife. Every job was a new name, a new lie. And every innkeeper who looked at you twice was a potential death sentence. And then there was failure. Not the kind where you get a bad Yelp review. The kind where your head ends up on a pike outside the city gate with a sign reading, "This is what happens when you miss." Failure wasn't tolerated. Not by the client, not by the victim, not by you. Mess it up, you're not just dead, you're an example. And everyone wants to make an example of an assassin. But let's say you succeeded. Let's say you actually pulled it off. Silent, swift, blood on the floor. A nobleman lying very still. You don't get a trophy. You don't get applause. You get 3 seconds of relief before you're sprinting through the castle, bleeding from somewhere, climbing over walls while dogs bark and guards yell, and the whole city goes on lockdown. The client? Long gone. The money? Maybe waiting for you, if you're lucky. Or maybe they sent someone else to make sure you don't ask for a raise. And even if you survive, even if you get the coin and slip away into the night, you're not free. You're just on the run. Again. Different name. New town. Same danger. Because now you are the liability. You know too much. You've proven what you can do. And the only thing more dangerous than a failed assassin is one who got it right. So, next time you picture the sleek, heroic figure in the shadows, remember this. The real medieval assassin was dirty, alone, afraid, underpaid, often injured, and always one heartbeat away from disaster. Not a legend, not a phantom, just a person the world forgot until it was too late.